Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Northern League Championship as we're on to week 6. My name is Hipbrain, and I'm joined here on the desk by Orcs, Excoundrel, and Gulborg. Big shout out to our sponsors, El Gigante, Corsair, Telia, and MasterCard. Right, guys, so last week we had a few upsets. What was going on? I mean, we obviously had our rough week, our rough day too, but let's talk about the games we did have. Orcs, what were the most exciting games for you last week?
Well, I think it was unfortunate that it was off stream, but we obviously had the BTXL Riddle matchup, which we didn't get to see, but I'll talk a bit about that later. I think ultimately Singularity against Nordavind was the massive one, the big upset we're all talking about. Singularity have been struggling at the bottom of the table, managing to beat one of the top teams in their group and in a pretty convincing fashion. It felt like Nulty, the jungler for Nordavind, just really did not wake up in that game. And then as a result, Singularity were just able to take over.
And I'll take it straight to the next game. Or it was the last game of the day that time. It was Tricked versus Dusty. And I was the only one who really had faith in Dusty, but it was still an upset. Tricked, of course, was sitting comfortably on the second seed of the group, and Dusty was almost ready for relegation. So it's an immense victory coming in for Dusty too, and one that was really needed for them.
Yeah, actually, and those two, I think, were the most surprising results that we got to see on stream overall. Everything else kind of went as expected. But those results have opened up Group A and Group B quite significantly. And you pair that with some of the results that we had off stream, which I know Orcs is going to talk about. We had two games that were kind of played off stream last week due to some technical difficulties. We've really got a very, very open group across Group A and Group B for those playoff spots. So I'm kind of excited to get into this week, especially because there is just so much to play for.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much time left either to play. So, I mean, a lot is tied up, especially in Group A. We'll dive into it a little bit. But obviously, last week, if you were watching, we did have those technical difficulties and we had to miss out on 2 games. We do have the results of those games that were played off stream. Riddle versus XL was our first game, and Riddle actually won that. And then it was Godsend versus Singularity, and Godsend got their win over there. But Orcs, I want to talk a little bit more about the Riddle versus XL game. What happened?
So essentially, XL, I think they cornered themselves a bit in the draft. They ended up going for a last pick Camille when Doxy had the Renekton, and that was really their only late game win condition. They had a LeBlanc mid, they had a Callisto Nautilus bot lane, and so what happened was Riddle played heavily around their solo laners. They got a massive lead for Doxy. Suddenly your late game win condition is falling apart, and there's a super strong Renekton who starts causing issues for you on the map. Ultimately, XL's early game win conditions weren't able to flourish, and then when Camille was so far behind, it meant they were really out of options. And I think the big thing about this is Riddle are now 2-0 over XL on the head-to-head, and they're pretty close. They're only 1 point behind them in the standings, and if they catch up with them, that head-to-head advantage means they'll be in a really comfortable spot.
I'm actually really excited to see Riddle going on, because if you remember last week, we said Doxy tweeted out a little gif of I think it was like the Undertaker, like coming out of the Undertaker wrestling guy coming out of a coffin, and it was Riddle reborn. So they start that off and they walk the walk as well as talking the talk. They take XL down for the second time this split. It's a big scalp to take for Group A especially. Now we're going to see if Riddle can continue that walk and continue to put out the performances that they seem to be alluding to with their chat on social media.
I mean, you're excited. I'm excited. Like, I wish that game was played live. Come on. Finally, when Riddle starts to pop off, it's on a game we can't even watch. It was not even live streamed. Like, come on. I'm feeling robbed here.
It was sad. It was sad we had to miss those games, but unfortunately it was a little out of our hands. Now let's have a little look at the standings and see how all the chips are falling here in the NLC as we go into week 6. XL and Nordavind tied at the top of Division A, 5 wins and 2 losses apiece. Then it is Riddle in third, then ends with Godsend tied up with them, and then at the bottom it is Team Singularity. Let's have a little look over on Group B and see what's going on there. Fnatic Rising standing at the top, 6-0, undefeated. Then it is Munster and Tricked, 4-2 tied up a piece. Then it is going to be Dusty, Barrage, and M&M. Guys, what are we looking at here in the standings? What are the consequences so far within our groups?
Well, I think Sorry, you go on. Excel.
No, I was going to say, I was actually going to ask you, Orcs, because one of the big things that happened in Group A was obviously we saw off-stream Godsent beating out Singularity. That makes Group A that much spicier, but I kind of wanted to hear about that game as well, you know, a little bit about kind of what went down in that particular matchup.
So this was actually a super close one. The first round robin was as well. These two teams feel like they're pretty evenly matched, but ultimately Godset came out ahead. I got to give a shout out to Takeset, the AD carry for Team Singularity. He had a massive Kai'Sa performance with 7-1 at one point. That a Lulu mid, and so he was set up to carry the game, and they had a gold lead. They were playing around Baron, and Godsent just executed better. We're looking towards Champion on his Jace, who was an absolute monster in that one, and the whole team just formed a really strong team fight to get that one, and that's now put Group A in a really precarious place where, you know, we have Ents and Godsent tied up, Riddle only slightly ahead, and things are a little uneasy when we're looking towards those playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Group A and Group B, I think the stories are slightly different. Fnatic obviously locked into the locked into playoffs. They're not technically locked into first out of the group yet. They have to kind of have a pretty rough couple of weeks, but there are 2 weeks left, and you know, there's a lot that can go on in all of these groups. There's only M&M, I believe, the only team who are currently out of actually making playoffs. Am I right in that, or am I completely off?
Yeah, well, I think the good way to look at this is that if we look at Group B, Fnatic are 100% in playoffs. No matter if they lose every single game for the rest of the season, they're going to make a playoff spot at some point in Group B. But for all intents and purposes, given the way that Fnatic are playing, we're going to assume that they're coming out top of that group, right? The really big story today, though, Jake and everybody, is that XL and Nordavind, they play each other final game of the day. They can secure playoffs, so they can be in the same position of Fnatic. The winner of that match secures a spot for Group A playoffs. And then sort of finally, Munster, if they beat Fnatic and Barrage losing game 1, they also can secure. So we've got some instances today where teams are going to get themselves locked in to a top 4 spot in their group. And that's going to give us a clearer picture about who's in that rat race for the playoffs going into next week.
I just want to emphasize the importance, because obviously there is going to be a situation where even if you're not getting the top spot in playoffs, you're still going to be there, you can still fight. But looking at the strength of Fnatic Rising, especially for those Group A teams, XL and Nordavind are wanting to dodge Fnatic out, who at the moment it's looking like the likely front runner for Group B. So this is a really important match. You secure that playoffs, it gives you a bit of a safety net, but also for Nordavind, they'll equalize the head-to-head, they'll get a score advantage over XL. It potentially sets them up to top their group and dodge that really hard round 1 matchup against Fnatic. So a lot can happen here, and the impact is absolutely huge.
I think it's time we take a dive into what's going on today and what games we've got coming up at the NLC. Let's have a little look at today's schedule, see what games we're coming up. We're starting the day off with Barrage versus Tricked, then it's Munster Rugby Gaming versus Fnatic Rising. Third up will be Ents versus Team Singularity, and be rounding that out with BTXL versus Nordavind. I'm going to throw this to you, Gulborg. What game are you excited for today?
I mean, I think it's all of us who's pretty much excited for this one. BTXL versus Nordavind. As Ox just mentioned, one of these teams are actually locking themselves in for playoffs today. And that's going to be monumental, especially for a team like Nordavind, which a lot of people didn't really have any confidence in coming to this split. And now they're here fighting for the first seed. Well, not first seed, but just being the first team in playoffs already. This match of the day is going to be instrumental.
Yeah, let's have a little look. Go on.
Sorry, no. I was going to say. No. I was going to say. I think one of the most important things to look at is that we've still got everything to play for in both of these groups. Like, no one is completely locked into relegation, and in both sides of the sides of the coin, we've got a lot of teams that are really looking for a playoff spot. Really, I want to hype up in Group A specifically, Riddle, Godsent, and Ents. This is a 3-way run for like playoff spots remaining in that group, with Riddle and with XL and Nordavind being in a great spot already. But those 3 teams, they are head-to-head right now. They are head-to-head for playoff spots.
And it's only, let's say that theoretically, as Alexandra is saying, BTXL and Nordavind is going to make playoffs. Then we have 3 teams for the run now, and only 2 of them can make it. So every victory just counts now, especially when we have the game today later, where Singularity is just fighting for survival, and they're facing Ents who's fighting for playoffs. These coming weeks on just today's games are going to be huge in this narrative that we're talking about playoffs. So I can't wait to get it started, because there's so much on the stakes today.
And I think as well, there's still the potential for even the likes of Godsend and Ents on 3 and 4. They can still be relegated if things do start to slip. So it's not just focusing on the playoffs, but if you start to slip up in the games, suddenly you could be dropping down below Singularity, or in the case of Barrage, dropping down below M&M. And then it's obviously fighting through the relegations to keep your spot in the league. So it just shows how fluid the groups are currently. Obviously, the front runners and the absolute last teams are a little bit locked in, but there's still a lot of fluidity that can change with only a few matches left.
What I really like about how tight it is as we get into this stage in the tournament is every game matters. It's not like teams are playing for pride. Sometimes you find it the later stages of a tournament, if there just have been a few really good front runners, it's kind of pride pieces in these games. But every game means something. But there are people here in the NLC who are going to be fighting for a bit of pride, and that is us with our predictions. So let's have a little look at what everybody is predicting today. Me and Gulborg haven't actually gone for a spicy pick on our own this time. It's actually you joined forces with Captain Curse Orcs.
I mean, essentially what happens when Captain Curse and Orcs meets up with me, who blesses the teams with predictions, right? So I think that it's going to be really interesting where we're coming out for this one. I think it's interesting to see that you actually went with a lot of standard predictions today, Hipper, and that's very unlike you.
I was just feeling it today. You know, I was just feeling these teams. Scoundrel, what's the singularity about vote for you here? Do you genuinely were you sold on them?
Well, I think Singularity have been getting stronger. I'd like to believe in them. I'd like to believe in Singularity. Like, they need to win every game to even have a shot at playoffs at this point. And it's actually out of their hands at this point as well. Even if they won every game, if results didn't go their way, they aren't making playoffs regardless. So I'm just believing in them. You know, I'm hoping these guys can get the wins.
And I think for a lot of these are close games. I think maybe game one, we've seen Barrage have quite a bit of potential. I think that's definitely not as one-sided as analyst desk suggests. But then game two, Munster have shown that on their A day, they are a really formidable team. It's just Fnatic's consistency has been kind of overwhelming, but they haven't been infallible. There have been games where it's looked a little bit touch and go. So I think Trouble Inc. obviously going for Munster, I think it just shows that Fnatic's consistency is the overwhelming thing, but we could definitely see upsets happen there. I think all 4 games could really go either way. It's just the first 2, I think, are a little bit more stacked in one direction.
I mean, if that upset happens, that actually could potentially really change the tides over in Group B for Fnatic, but we'll have to see. We're going to take a quick break here, guys, but we will be getting ready to go into our first game of the day. We're back with Barrage versus Tricked in a second.
time, 'cause I'm already gone. So long, can you stay the night? 'Cause you're the thing I want. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out, but even with no makeup, you still stand out.
Just trying to pump the damage out, and actually Eminem's health bars are being absolutely obliterated. Yadrin's going to get clipped, and all of the CC's onto him. Down he goes. Members here, Legion's still alive. They flash forward. Down goes the mid. Chelm's the only one left standing as he's dealing with PlayStation and Wazor. A triple kill for Chelm. He's going to take out Wazor, make it a quadra kill. As they are getting zoned away, this might be the miracle I was asking for. Energy finds the kill. The Infundum came up clutch. Eminem are not out of it. And down goes Energy. Jack Spectre still firing away. You can't kill the Aphelios. Eminem are sent packing as Dusty walk away with the fight. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NLC. We're getting ready to go into our first game of the day between Barrage and Tricked. Some would argue this is maybe a little bit Tricked favored, but there are still some pretty big playoff implications, Xscoundrel.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it there, but Barrage need this win if they want to keep any of their playoff dreams a reality. You know, they need to start the ball rolling to put themselves in contention for playoff, because they're very quickly slipping down the rankings towards that dangerous M&M territory. And not only playoffs, they need to get this win to try and keep themselves out of relegation zone. You know, M&M still have a chance to catch up, and with a Barrage win, that would make it that much harder. Not only this game, though, if Barrage lose and then Munster win this second game, Munster actually secure playoffs. So this actually has a very big implication on Group B standings overall.
Yeah, and quite honestly, how do they win then, right? With like, how do we get to this point? And to be fair, I think this is an extremely interesting matchup today, because specifically with Tricked, we've been talking about how they've been a really good early game team, how they've been really smart about it, but also Barrage has actually had a pretty good laning phase. Every time we've seen Barrage, I've never got the feeling that it was a lost game from the laning phase. They got some really stable laners, but ironically enough, with a mid laner like Yadrin, it's when it comes to the late game that Barrage has team faulting. It's them as a team in general that haven't really built in that synergy yet. And we've talked to them when they finally had some wins in the interviews. They've been talking about they have some jitters, they're nervous, and they can feel that in the communication. So it's about them not performing as an individual player, but performing as a team, because they will be punished against Tricked.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because we often see them having a really solid start. We see Jadron playing these scaling mid laners like the Kassadin, still getting a massive lead, and they have good rotations around the Herald for the most part to find themselves advantages. But then it falls apart after that, which is, I mean, surprising to me, because typically you say, okay, we have a Kassadin who's coming out the early game 5-2 or something, and it's just like clean sailing from there. But I just feel like the coordination gets a little bit lacking from there. People get caught out. They're not setting up for objectives properly. And I think this is really going to be a big issue up against the side of Tricked. I think Tricked have shown that although they can play into the early game pressure, they can also lean into the late game. We saw that from one of their games the previous weeks where they were behind in the early game and they just turtled the game. And I think, honestly, that's all they really need to do here. I think Tricked can lean on the scaling element and feel confident that the Barrage are unlikely to be able to close out with a lead.
Yeah, and I actually kind of want to go a little bit further here. Something that we've always talked about with Tricked has been the power and the strength of their solo laners. Eren and Vazor specifically have been incredible players. And one of the biggest kind of fail-safes, I would say, for Barrage is Jadron. And Jadron's champion pool alludes towards a late game focus. And actually, Gulborg was explaining to me before we went live, so basically saying, I think Eren has the capability to kind of shut Jadron down from the very get-go.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, since you brought it up, Aaron is the kind of, I think he's one of the most flexible mid laners we have in the league, right? We've been seeing him on the likes of Pantheon. I was about to call him Phantom Dance. I don't really know why, but also one of the champions that's just really well into the map pool of Yatra, and he really likes to play for that late game. But even if you do want to match the late game, as also Ox is talking about, you can go with some heavy backline damage through his signature Seer, and we've even seen him playing set mid, where he just roams around the map. There's like, he's like a Swiss knife in a player. That's Aaron right there.
Yeah, and I think it's a super valuable tool to have, and part of the reason why we see Tricked as being favored. I think ultimately, if we're looking towards the side of Barrage, they need to do a similar thing where they attack the solo laners in the early game, particularly Aaron, give an advantage to Jadran, and then it's seeing them not fall apart when it gets to that mid lane, play to their win conditions, keep pushing advantages, because it just feels like they sort of lose their lead after a point. They get contested objectives where the setup isn't correct. Their team fight coordination is something that is really lacking. So hopefully that's something they've worked on, and then they could actually match Tricked in that regard. It comes from a strong early game. I'm looking at Flipper. I'm looking at what he can do on a map. Often he's a very opportunistic jungler, will find good gank opportunities and look to punish them. And it's just snowballing that and keeping it quite consistent, which is easier said than done, but it's definitely not a closed and shut case here.
And just to grab that point from Orcs, really, with Flipper, we've seen, because he has this opportunistic playstyle where he really wants to come in and gank with a pretty selfless style, well, he's getting punished a lot by the better junglers in the league that's in there taking his camps, getting that XP advantage onto him. I don't think that Soft is that kind of jungler who's going to punish Flipper in the same sense that we've seen before. So if Flipper is going to have a better setting as a jungler here, where he really likes to get in and have an influence on his solo laner, I think it's going to be against Trick, but I'm still doubtful because there's so much pressure on the solo laners of Trick.
I do still feel, though, Trick have shown us that they can, read the game, read the kind of state of the map and read the game. And Barrage, I feel we've seen so many good performances from them, but just not enough consistency. And like Escad was hitting on earlier, some of the issues that they seem to have is maybe just they're good when they get into late game, especially with someone like Yadrin on his Kassadin, but it feels like they're not completely able to execute and close out on a game. But we're gonna have to find out, guys. We are going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with Champ Select for this game, so don't go anywhere. We will see you in a second. Well, a lot on the line going into this week as we're getting ready to go into picks and bans between Barrage and Trick. The Kassadin out of there. Yadrin's not going to get his hands onto that, and the Azir also taken away from Aaron. I expected to see some mid lane bans, and maybe we'll see a little bit more attention go onto these mid laners. We'll have to see.
I want to see how much more they want to continue this target ban selection here, because yeah, you're getting rid of the Azir. Obviously, that's against Aaron. You can talk about the set flex here. They flex it in the jungle support and in mid lane, and obviously can go top 4 flex in this set for the side of Trick. And finally, we're getting rid of some meta bans in the Volibear here too. But I like seeing the respect from both teams in the beginning.
Yeah, I think obviously the targeted Jadran pick, which is just kind of what he's known for, has been some of his best performances in the NLC so far. And Aaron is kind of known for Azir. He has guides up on his YouTube about how to play Azir. The guy is kind of like the Azir man on the European server. So it makes a lot of sense to see these target bans coming through. Interestingly, we're getting a lot of red side Syndra bans, and that's usually an indicator that they are not comfortable flexing. And I haven't really seen Denvoxny play mages that much, so it makes sense they might want to give that over. Orianna gets banned straight up, though. A lot of mid lane focus here coming from the first 3 bans.
We ended up having a lot of power picks left open. The big ones for me are the Ashe, the Karma, and the Karthus, all really strong. Karthus, his lane priority now in bot lane is huge and has the flexibility. Karma, we've been seeing tons of from that late game scaling, and also, again, the flexibility and the shielding. And then Ashe is just the queen of 80 carries at the moment. Looks like we're going to see the Karma come out from the side of Barrage. It means Trick to kind of answer with either the Ashe or the Karthus. You're not really going to pick them together because obviously the Karthus can flex bot, but we'll see if they do even go in that direction.
Yeah, it felt to me like that Orianna ban was definitely Trick calling out Denvoxny, saying, you don't play this Karthus, so we're gonna leave it open. But actually looks to me like a Chew also doesn't want to get his hands onto that. So the Ezreal gets locked in for him in the bot lane. Now, at the moment, it looks like they are hovering the Pantheon here. Again, obviously a flexible pick. Aaron can take it mid. We've seen him take it mid. Also, Soft can take it in the jungle as well. See if they actually go for that lock-in, but I do like the flexibility in that pick. Looks like it's just going to go in for the Twisted Fate. Give some global pressure over to the side of Tricked.
Yeah, and this is about a champion we've seen banned against Aaron, granted in the second ban phase multiple times as well. The thing is with Denvoxny is he used to play on Vipers, where they had Hidden, who was actually very fond of playing Karthus too, and they could flex that towards the bot lane. So I'm actually extremely interested to see that Denvoxny didn't instantly pick up this Karthus. It could be that they wanted to see what they're picking into it. Granted that Trick is one of these teams where we've talked about them with mad drafting potential, but it's actually a Jhin out of all champions.
Oh my word.
What?
Okay.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, really interesting one. I mean, Jhin Karma was a really strong bot lane back when the champion first was really dominant in the meta, sort of when he came out, but it's been a long time since he has sort of shown his face. I felt like typically you would expect an Ashe or Aphelios, but they're picking something with quite a lot of range. Maybe that's the game they're trying to play, because obviously Ezreal is a bit difficult to deal at his maximum ranges, and Twisted Fate as well, although shorter range, if you get up close to him, you're gonna get stunned. So it gives a lot of sort of long range siege potential, or in open lanes, you can provide a lot of damage potential, but it's a bit of a twist on what we'd expect from the 80 carry pool.
This is a very, very odd draft, actually, from Barrage. You know, I think in this current meta, most top-tier teams pick or ban Karthus first up. You know, that's we had interviews about, I think we were doing interviews on the UKLC when we saw some Karthus, and they were basically saying it gives you perma priority. No one can beat it. It unlocks your jungle completely. So yeah, just very interesting that we don't see Karthus as a high priority for either of these teams. And I don't even think we're going to see it in the ban phase now, because there aren't many roles apart from the jungle for Flipper where it's going to be left open. Lee Sin for Soft, kind of a classic Soft pick, and if he plays well on it, we tend to see him do very well.
I do like this Corki pickup for Yadrin, though. Obviously, it gives him some scaling options. We know him as this kind of scaling mid laner. Obviously, we'll be going into Aaron, and he's not able to quite match the Destiny as consistently. Obviously, we'll be reliant on his package to really go for those roams, but we are seeing the bans come through, and I thought we might see some support bans come out from Barrage, but for now, they are just actually going to take away the Wukong. The Mordekai's are banned away by Tricked, and looks like we're having a bit of focus towards this top side. Like Scandal said in the pre-game, Wazor has been someone who's able to take over his lane, so maybe just looking to try and set him up for as comfortable a matchup as possible.
Yeah, I think the Mordekaiser, obviously something that's really good into the Wukongs. That suggests that kind of trade-off there. You see Trick ban that one out. You counter. Trick are happy to ban away the Ornn. And I feel like we may well see the top lane pick come out here. Potentially the threat of this Karma being a flex could be a thing. Alternatively, they could just take the support. But it's a little bit concerning if you're not exactly 100% certain what you're going up against in the bot lane. Obviously, there's a lot of blinds. Things like the Gangplank you can just throw top lane and be comfortable for. The thing that does surprise me, we doesn't see any jungle bans towards Flipper, especially if he's super gank heavy. We could see him take something like the Trundle just to win those skirmishes. Even the Rek'Sai wouldn't be outside of his pool, so a little bit weird for me not to see those come out.
I'm just so interested into seeing why they banned so many top laners up there. I think they're just going for the, well, Dreedy's obviously going to be weak side, because when you start banning a lot of top laners, when you're in the second ban phase, I believe that you're trying to go for fourth pick top laner. You want to ban away the hardest matchups so you can get the counter matchup, but they just straight up go with the Nautilus here, while Thresh is up for PlayStation 2. A bit of a disappointment for me too, but it is Dreedy's Camille we see coming in here. Renekton still up and available for Waystar too.
Yeah, and actually with the Sejuani lock-in, it makes me feel like it may not even be weak side top lane. They may try to put a bit of pressure on the top side of the map here, because Sejuani obviously combos really well with melee laners, and there's no other melee laner to work with in this entire roster. So if they're looking to put pressure on, it's going to be a Gragas. I assume Gragas top here for Vazor. That's an interesting one. These drafts have been pretty wild, but Barrage have definitely brought something completely different. I mean, we haven't seen a comp like this in the current meta at all.
Yeah, I like the Gragas because it provides a lot of backline threat if you land your combo, and that's important because in the late stage of the game, having the Jhin Corki with the Karma protecting will be problematic. You can't let it get to that stage and have them unchallenged. And also, into the Camille, you have that disengage. If she ults you, you can ult her out. And on top of that, my concern really is we have Barrage leaning into that scaling element, but they're looking up against a Twisted Fate, something that can really open up the map, threaten those side lanes, cause issues for both Druidi and Voxnay. So if Barrage can weather the storm here, if they can't collapse in the mid game like we've seen them before, we could see them come out with a strong late game, but it's just they have to overcome what Tricked offer in the early stages.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say of this. I'm actually quite fond of the draft coming from Barrage. It's something different while still being Barrage with a 1-3-1 composition. Jhin is obviously new with the Karma, trying to go ahead with that early game free scaling against an Ezreal too here. As you said, it's really going to come down to the TF2, but if they somehow butch a lot of dives, if they fall too far behind in the early game too, there is a legitimate threat in the 1-3-1 composition coming in from the side of Barrage, especially with this Camille, because yeah, you can have the Twisted Faith, but Camille can still 1v2 and side lane in the late game if you get to the really, really late game.
Bit of a spicy draft, but we are going to be getting ready to go into the game. So we're going to pass it over to our casters, Medic and Trouble.
Thank you very much, Hiprain. Really looking forward to this first game of the day. Trouble, how are you feeling? You excited for this one?
Oh yeah, these are actually my two teams that I'm behind. You know, one coming in as the rookies, Barrage, and then Tricked coming in as the team that I didn't know anything about. And suddenly I became a huge fan. I was like, no, I got called out. I got called out because they were like, why didn't you go for Barrage this time? You guys, I gave them their chances, Medic. I gave them their chance to prove me wrong. But I'll stick with the Trick train.
I think it's going to be a really exciting game because, of course, Barrage, you know, they're fighting near the bottom of Group B. They're not clear of relegation yet, although it would take a miracle for M&M to get out of that 6th place spot. But they do still have a chance to make it into playoffs, especially if we see Dusty dropping some games, especially if they beat Tricked here. It could be the start of something great for Barrage. We are going to get on to Summoner's Rift in just a second, I believe, as we had a pause starting off the game. But it looks like everyone is in and ready and raring to go.
Yeah, and I just, you know, my big concern has always been with Barrage. Sure, you've got the players, you've got the talent, but your late game assignments, you play for late game, and then your late game assignments kind of suck. So they're gone again for the exact same composition. Let's all scale to the late game, front to back composition, with your shield, with your 2 AD and AP damage profile, your frontline tank. Everything looks great on paper, but are they going to be able to execute late game? This is what concerns me, and I hope I got called out for a good reason and that Barrage have actually fixed their stuff late game.
And you have to hope so, otherwise it would be odd for them to go for a very similar composition to the one that they played in the past. On the other side of the rift, of course, is Tricked. We'll see if they can get some of these early advantages. I'll be honest, I know Vazor plays a lot of Gragas top. I'm still surprised to see it. Like, it's not a conventional pick. He's running Phase Rush this game, and I'm going to be really interested to see how he's able to deal with Dreedy and Flipper, who should be up near the top side of the map quite a lot early on.
In all honesty, Wazer has actually pulled out the Azir as well, so I'm not surprised when I see anything come out from him. Yeah, but Flipper pulling out the Sejuani here, and with the Permafrost acting differently with melee champions and it's much faster to proc, you would expect him to be towards the top side, like you mentioned. You want to get the Camille ahead. You want to start your split push from the early game, which is something that we know Barrage for. Them 1-3-1 compositions, and by getting Dreedy ahead, we've seen him do some amazing things when his Camille gets fed. Wazer on the Gragas, he's gonna go towards that AP sort of playstyle here, and he is very, very squishy up top, so he could be very easily pinned down.
He definitely could, especially, as you say, if Dreedy and Flipper team up. I have noticed a slight discrepancy in summoner spells here, Trouble. There are 3 teleports on the side of Tricked and only 1 on Barrage. Of course, the Corki package does give you some teleports, like some movement around the map, some mobility, but I'm a little worried for Barrage that they might get outnumbered in some of these early skirmishes just because of the teleports coming out. Vizor here is going to trade onto Dreedy, and here comes the first teleport of the game. Aaron trying to get down towards the bottom lane. Doesn't have a card locked in yet. There's the gold card, immediately cleansed away by Den Voxney.
Hey, that's okay. You try to get as many summoners as possible. That's a level 2 Twisted Fate. He will be level 6 very soon. That cleanse will not be up and available for Nevoxne. So the second that Twisted Fate gets his ultimate, you should expect him to get back down that bot lane and cash in on another kill. That's a very great usage of his spellbook right there, because he didn't lose anything in the mid lane. He pushed out, teleported back down, got a free gift, back to farm.
Yeah, he was just able to push the lane pretty early on. He's a little bit behind in CS, and of course we've seen what Corkis can do if they're giving some early advantages, maybe if they can get a plate or two, but Yadrin has yet to show us the full might of his Corki in this game. Meanwhile, the junglers are just farming up their camps. Actually, looks like Flipper spent a little bit of time in this topside jungle, maybe looking for a dive after he does these Krugs, but the wave really isn't in the best of positions for him to go for it.
Yeah, he hasn't necessarily been able to stock it up. I think it's more about allowing Dreedy to push and crash that wave underneath the tower without the threat of Soft being around and ganking him together with Wazer. So he's sort of helping with the vision provided by his body and also getting that Skull Crab.
Soft is able to come across and make sure that Jadwin didn't have the safest of times leaving the lane there. He got the bottom side Scuttle Crab, so he's going to be okay in terms of farm, in terms of CS. Isn't going to be out-jungled too much. But I actually think Flipper may have counter-jungled his Razorbeaks. Looking at it now, Soft didn't spend too much time over there, so I think there was only one little chicken remaining for him to gobble on. And that's good for Flipper. You know, he can go back into his own camps, get himself quite a lot of CS, and then have an experience advantage for the early game at least.
And this is very important specifically for the Sejuani, because when you hit that level 6, you need to be there for the counter gank. You need to have that ultimate in case Aaron gets out of his lane super quickly and having that ultimate up and available. So it is really, really important for someone who's building to be that frontline tank to be ahead in experience right now. And Sof has fallen behind. He's still level 3. He's looking for these opportunities, but Barrage are playing so calculated that they're not allowing anyone to overstep.
You can see Sof is trying to find a way into this bottom lane. Barrage have done a really good job getting a couple of wards. Yeah, he's going to base. He's going to go back. Didn't take away the Krugs. Has now spotted Flipper going towards his Razorbeak, so they do know where the Sejuani is. But Flipper's going to have quite a sizable CS lead for the early game here. Erin trying to step in, but he's not going to be there in time to really do anything about this.
This is the thing, right? Barrage doesn't necessarily need to do anything in the early game. They all just kind of want to farm. They all want to stay safe. On the other hand, Tricked just want to go all in. For me, seeing a Gragas, a Twisted Fate, a Lee Sin, and a Nautilus screams to me, let's kill bot lane, level 6. Let's all TP down that bot side, kill Nightmares and the Voxney, and cash in on the Dragon. So I think all eyes peeled. Aaron is almost level 6. Cleanse is almost coming up on the Voxney. I'm not sure he's going to be making it in time down there.
Flipper at the moment is the one who's going to be spending time down towards the bottom lane. It looked like Soft was thinking about starting up the Dragon, maybe just using the Sonic Wave to check that it wasn't started by Barrage themselves. But with the vision getting cleared out here, I think Den Voxley and Nightmares are really just looking for back time. They're trying to push in the wave, but the teleport's going to come in. And here's the gank that you were expecting, Trouble. Den Voxley just way too pushed up. He's dead. And all 5 members of Trick have a little bit of a party in the bottom lane.
And that was the disruption we were talking about. So you're playing the front to back, but your ADC is extremely immobile. Does he get caught? He's gonna go down for sure. So they cash in onto that kill. They get to push the lane out for free. The Ezreal is free farming down there. Hashisti is charging it up, and they get a free Dragon whilst not losing that much CS across the map. That is a pretty tricked sort of movement right there.
I think it was a little bit greedy from Barrage as well, right? Like, you could see they were trying to stop Trick from freezing the wave just underneath the tower, but just stepping a little bit too far, not respecting the teleports means that they lose out on that kill. They lose out on the first Dragon of the game. The only benefit they got was Dreedy was able to take a plate in the top lane. He's going to back with about a 10 CS lead, and perhaps this Sejuani can start to take over that lane in the top lane. Sheen double longsword means that he's going to be very powerful in the pure 1v1, and now he teleports up there. Has the Hexagold Maiden here as he goes in, but isn't gonna... Actually, he's trading very aggressively with the Precision Protocol there onto Visor. And there's the Sejuani on this side of the map as well. So Visor, actually, he's just used his body slam. Dreedy could Hexagold Maiden him right in here. Explosive cast comes out, but that's just dodged, and Visor was just...
There's more coming.
It's just a misapplication of skills, let's be honest. He's gonna flash the chase.
What?
Oh, that was... Yeah, if Flipper was 6, that works, but Flipper with a brilliant flash right there.
Wait. So Dreedy plays that great. I'm not going to say that Wazer mistimed his ultimate, okay? I'm just going to give it all to Dreedy and say he played that so well, trying to force Wazer out of his lane. He doesn't have teleport. He gets the kill there. He flies straight ahead to the finish line with that Camille. And then everything gets bought after that. Nevertheless, that Camille is still ahead. He's still going strong. One flash band of Flipper will take that because now he has his ultimate up and available. The only problem right now is that I'm expecting the Camille to start playing towards the bot side because everyone is swapping up for that Rift Herald. So, actually they're taking the Camille with them. So still the opportunity to get them ahead, maybe try to lock in the Ezreal or even kill the Nautilus would be a possibility here with the Sejuani ult.
Yeah, I think the reason that they couldn't send Dreedy straight down towards bottom lane, because I was expecting the same thing, was Den Voxley had spent a little bit more time down there making sure that the wave was pushing into the turret. So they wanted to make sure they had 4 players on the top side of the map in case a Rift Herald was started, and now you see the swap happening. So a little bit delayed there from Barrage, slightly mismanaged on the wave in the bottom lane, but no huge harm, assuming that Den Voxley can get in range for this Relic Shield proc and for the cannon, which I believe is going to be there in time.
Yeah, the lane assignments haven't been looking the greatest, and then they have Dreedy running all the way up top, and then suddenly the Voxley is like, oh, I'm done farming down bot lane, you can move up there. And now they sort of have the disadvantage because the most fed member of Barrage is all the way down bot. So Trick want to take this fight.
And Trick's had the push in the top lane as well. They're going to get pushed in mid, so Aaron will be able to roam up here pretty quickly. And if Jadron stays... Oh, he's just taking the blue buff. Okay, I couldn't quite see it on the map. I thought he was just trying to shadow Soft, but could have stayed around a little bit too long there, losing CS to the turret. And you can see as soon as the waves are in favor of Trick, they then set up for the Rift Herald. They should be able to take this pretty easily. Barrage have given up on it. They've sent their jungler to the other side of the map. And this is where you get a tiny bit worried for the bottom lane of Barrage, because there's the Destiny, there's a Lee Sin kick, there's an Ezreal, there's a Nautilus, right? And they could all just come up towards the top lane.
Yeah, they can't see anyone right now. I think they can only see Soft and PlayStation. And something that I've always been saying when you let the Dragon go, you let the Rift Herald go, is sure, you've got a late scaling composition, but how much are you willing to give up? And how far ahead will Trick be by the time that you feel you're ready to fight? Now, we're looking at specific spikes, right? We're looking at the Mana Moon and the Trinity Force onto your Corki. We're looking for an Infinity Edge at least onto your Jhin and the Trinity Force onto your Camille. No one is anywhere near yet. And if you look on the other side for Trick, they are so close to completing that first item that will skyrocket them in these small skirmishes.
And with the Cloud Dragon being up in just a minute's time, one of those skirmishes might happen soon, Trouble. I want to give some credit to Wiseau. He's been dealing very well with this Camille in the side lane. He lost his flash early. Dreedy, it seems like, is just trying to farm up in the lane, and Wiseau's actually already moved away from this. And I think this is actually indicative of what we've seen a couple of times over the last few minutes. Is Barrage seems to be just that little bit slower on the play, right? So Wiseau should be able to have his teleport back up by the time this Cloud Dragon comes up, and you can see Barrage are like, okay, well, we can't really send Dreedy up to the top lane because then we'll be at a numbers disadvantage. Although Dreedy could try and CC Wiseau out of his teleport if he went for it, and they lose out on some of the experience on the map. Right now, they're losing out on a wave in the top lane. They're losing out on a plate in the top lane, and you're just not playing all three lanes at the same time.
And here's the thing, right? The problem is because, like you mentioned, Trick were first to the play. They reset first, they walk into the river first, they get vision first. Barrage have to use body's advantage to try and brute force their way in there and even fight Trick if it comes to it. Now for Trick, it's much easier to actually scout because they have the Destiny from TF, but they don't care about this. They're just most likely going to use the referral top lane and exchange first tower.
It's like, we already got a dragon. We don't care about soul point at this point in the game. You're going to be able to get another 2 plates in the bottom lane, but we're going to take an entire tower at the 12-minute mark. What?
Wait. She doesn't fancy the headbutt? No?
Yeah, Rift Tower decides she wants to survive a little bit longer today, apparently, as headbutting made illegal, obviously, in football, illegal in most contact sports, and apparently illegal in League of Legends as well.
Yeah, Shelly is playing clearly by the rules you just mentioned that I didn't know about. So thanks for letting me know that this was the rule right now. I'm not sure what happened there, but it took Trick so long to take that tower. And in all honesty, all this time, Dreedy was all the way the other side of the map. They could have taken 2 towers right there.
Yeah, I think... obviously, Spectator can be weird as Dreedy gets caught out. Pops the Hexagon Maiden, going to try and repel his way. Oh, well.
The Q?
Doff hits the Q, and goodbye, Camille. Second kill of the game over to Tricked. And they are going to be able to get this second tower anyway, because there is no one here to stop them.
And see, again, we're falling back to the same sentiment, right? Barrage, like drafting for the 1-3-1. They like drafting for the split push. They can also team fight, sure. But when I see Camille and when I see Corky, I'm like, ooh, you want to play the side lanes. And it's just not happening for them. Whoa.
What?
Get outplayed.
I mean, I knew he was going to do that. Like, it's the least sin. Do we think he's going to W away from my ultimate? Well, probably. Even if you go for it, are you definitely going to be able to kill him? He's got Skirmisher Saber. He can smite you. Like, you probably could chase him down, but it just feels like a very disheartened play from
And let's
Flipper.
remember, he wasn't alone. Gragas was around.
Yeah. It feels very much, it reeks of desperation to me. It's like we haven't found anything in the early game. We're 2,000 gold behind. We lost out on these towers in the top lane. And it's just not going well for Barrage right now. Of course, sitting 2 and 4 in the standings, trying to chase into that playoff spot, but Tricked standing very much in their way. And Tricked with a win here don't guarantee themselves the spot in playoffs, but pretty near to making sure that they make it through to playoffs.
Oh, they're baiting here with the Ezreal, but right behind Flipper's coming in. Oh, that was very wise. I don't know if it was accidental, but it was very wise.
Well, he's going to try and run away, but the chase is on here for Tricked. Aaron has a card available, locks the gold, but isn't going to come across for the fight. And the blue buff will once again be secured here by Tricked. They're in a really strong position. Couple of minutes on the next dragon if they want to go for it. Achu is stacking up his tier really quickly. And Manamoon has been finished on Judrun, so we do start to see some spikes. And there's a Storm Razor on Den Voxnay, but it feels a little bit weak right now for Barrage.
It does. There's more items that need to come in. They need at least 2, maybe 3 even items onto the Jhin until they want to start fighting. Ezreal is feeling fine. Having the pickaxe and the Sheen right there, he's fine poking people away. Same together with the Twisted Fate, and then you pull the all-in if you trick. You see that the second trick moves somewhere on the map, Barrage has to fall back. This is where the desperation starts kicking in, right? Because we said, how much can you afford to lose until you want to fight. And this has always been the question for Barrage that they've never been able to answer. They start getting itchy. They start getting anxious. Should we be fighting? Should we be letting things go? Are we losing this for a good cause so we can scale it into the late game or not? Thank you very much, mate. That was great.
Soft's just like, hey, mate, I'm the jungler. You have 123 CS. Can you please just give me this? It's like, nope. Visor needs it for his next item. He's got the proto belt complete already on the Gragas. He's looking towards whatever comes next. Greedy going to be spared up here once again. The Glacial Prism does not connect, and Flipper has to flash away, but that's the stun on Soft. And immediately he gets deleted. So Barrage get a kill, if not the one they were looking for.
That was a little bit overzealous from Trick. You don't necessarily know how many members Barrage has in the mid lane, and then you've got your Gragas and your Ezreal in side lane, so you could be in a man's disadvantage, and Soft goes a little bit too far. You know what? Maybe he was tilted from the Scuttle Crab. He just wanted a kill instead.
Yeah, PlayStation going to get caught out a little bit here, but a Choose coming in from the side. Greedy going to look for that Hex to go to Maidem, has the ult, but jumps and misses everyone, is knocked back into the entirety of Trick. However, Greedy's still alive. PlayStation, the first to fall in the fight, and Trick will have to just run back towards the safety of their tower.
And they've lost their Nautilus. That means that Barrage will be able to get back, reset really quickly, and then start getting the vision for the Infernal Dragon. So they're in a really good place right now. They're starting to cash in some kills on very, very key members, the Corki and the Jhin. The faster these two guys get to their items, the easier it will be for them to team fight. So far, Trick have been pulling the trigger in some very, very unfavorable fights.
Yeah, that was a really odd one there from Trick. But as you say, credit to Barrage. They've been able to pick up a couple of kills on some really key members. You've been talking about how these 280 carries are going to be sort of their carries in the late game and in team fights. And just getting a couple of kills on them this early on is so beneficial. That gold lead has shrunk to about 1,600. At the moment, we're in North America because everyone's in the mid lane. But it looks like people are just setting up around at the Inferno. Once again, this is one of those plays where I understand why teams set it up like this, but I would have much preferred to see Greedy up in the top lane, because right now he's been isolated by all of Trick. They can get here so easily. He's going to try and get away, or maybe even take this tower with him as he goes. Precision Protocol isn't quite enough damage. The chase is on. Barrage trying to gain control of the river while Greedy distracts Erin. And that dragon has been started up. Greedy underneath the turret's going to repel himself away. Soft hits Sonic Wave. Flipper's almost dead already, but he gets a massive shield. Still goes down, and now Den Voxner is stuck in the back of the pit. Almost kills Soft. The dragon goes down. Curtain Call will not find its mark, and off towards the top side of the fight, you can see Barrage still getting chased out. Jadron falls, and underneath the turret, Nightmares will just do everything he can to survive.
And that could be another mid lane tower for them. That was a very favorable fight for them. They saw that the only guy who could potentially be threatening their backline, Greedy, is running for his life. Aaron stays exactly as much as he needed to, because Barrage cannot fight without their Camille. Flipper ends up going down way too early in the fight. That means an easy smite for Soft. They secure the dragon, and now they also get the mid lane tower, split the map wide open. Means your Corki and your Jhin are gonna have to be very, very scared walking up to get these waves.
It just gives you so many more gank opportunities, and when you have a team with the amount of global pressure that Trick have, it becomes so difficult. We talked about it right at the start of the game, Trouble. Triple TP and a Destiny. Like, if you think you're in a 1v1, very quickly you're in a 3v1, and you just get absolutely collapsed on. Barrage have been able to stem some of the bleeding before that fight. They closed that gold gap, but that's begun to expand once again. 3,000 gold between the two teams. And you can see, actually, a lot of that sits on Visor in the top lane. Yeah, he's had a stellar performance. This Camille should outscale the dragon, though. Yeah, oh man, it was all the Scuttle Crab. That extra 106 gold or whatever it is that he picked up. Just too powerful. But yeah, top lane is the big discrepancy, and obviously in the jungle as well. About 800 gold difference. That's just the couple of kills that Soft has been able to pick up for himself. And it's gonna be really interesting to watch this game develop, because something you talked to me about earlier, Trouble, was the inability of Barrage to really assign side lanes correctly. And for them to get the most out of this map and to be able to actually fight around the third, around the fourth dragon, they really need to play these waves well, because otherwise they're going to be losing experience. As you can see, Greedy here having to give up the entire bot side of the map, losing experience to the tower, and probably can't even step up safely to this next wave.
I mean, the thing is, while all this was going on, Driddy was just waiting in the mid lane to potentially try and peek off someone. And it's always Yadron on a side lane. But at this point, you have Yadron on a side lane with no TP. Aaron would be happy to match that one. Always, huh?
They're going to try and kill the Gragas before anyone else can arrive. But here comes Soft. Driddy's already used the Hexag ultimatum, and there's the double kick. Goodbye, Flipper. Go back to Burgers. The hook doesn't quite connect there for PlayStation, but Tricked get another kill in the bottom lane and chuck down the second Rift Herald of the game. Let's see if this one decides that headbutting is illegal or whether it will take the fine for it. Here we go.
And...
Okay, there we go. Only happens once a game, guys, apparently.
He was trying to trick, but
Yeah.
obviously it's not happening because it's in their name. And I feel like this move right there was completely illegal by Barrage. You have a couple of components of your Trinity Force onto your Camille, and you're engaging a double item Gragas, and you have seen previously that his jungler is around. Now, we talked again about Barrage and Desperation starting to hit in. You don't necessarily know exactly when and how you want to fight. I think Driddy has wasted way too much time and way too much experience waiting for this perfect moment to engage. But all you just need to do is be a nuisance on the side lane. You're the guy that holds the teleport, so you're the guy that needs to stop pulling these plays on the side lanes.
I agree with you. It feels like Barrage haven't really used that teleport, right? Like I saw it once into the lane, and then the rest of the time Driddy's kind of been the one being collapsed on. And of course that is a tactic you see used quite often in League of Legends. You know, you attack the global, you attack the TP, because then no one else can back him up. And because Tricked have the advantage when it comes to global summoners, they can always get an extra man in the fight if they need to. Now, with 50 seconds left on the next Infernal and a 5,000 gold lead, Tricked are just so in the ascendancy. You've got Trinity Force and Manamune finished on your Ezreal. You've got Lichbane and a fully stacked Rod of Ages. Your Lee Sin has gone Edge at Night, for goodness sake, right? Like, Tricked know they're winning this game right now, and they're trying to put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, they're basically choking the early game away from Barrage, and then the Barrage are not necessarily the greatest team to come back in the late game, right? Even when they have the composition. So by just taking all the resources, scrapping away all the little vision that Barrage has, it means that Barrage is going to have to face check. What does that mean? They have to group up again, aka share the fun, share the experience until they can move as a unit where they need to go. Oh,
Barrage, what the flip are you doing? You don't care about this dragon. It's not soul point. You're losing a flipping inhibitor. Like, sorry, that was probably a little bit too angry.
I think you're molding here.
Like, I am molding a little bit, because Erin just gets a free inhib, then Destiny's out, and you lose the 4v4 fight. Okay, Camille's going to TP in. This is okay from Barrage. You have lost already that TP. Soft able to dodge away from the Glacial Fissure. There's the explosive cast from the side. Visor going in as well, but Erin is now here for the party, and that dragon isn't low enough yet. Curtain Call coming out. There's the true shot Barrage. Nightmare's almost died. He's gone. There's two as Soft dives onto the backline, and Flipper is next on the menu. Tricked just demolish Barrage. Take four, all five of them, in fact. Didn't see the kill at the end, but it looks like a Chew was able to catch out the final player. There's the ace. There's the third dragon of the game. The base is wide open, and Barrage don't have a hope in hell of winning this game.
And this is pretty much textbook Trick right here. They will pick on you, they will engage on you, they will pull you apart. And
even the minions are on Trick's side.
I think this is sort of to make up for what happened before with Shelly, and now they're gonna start Baron again. I am not sure what Barrage were thinking in this situation. You need to weigh what's happening on the map. And in all honesty, I just need to see Flipper hit one ulti. One ulti, and I'm gonna be happy in this game, Medic. Just one.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's on Nautilus. Just one.
I mean, I know Smithy's been playing Academy in NA. Maybe he's subbed in for an NLC team this week, because Flipper has been struggling. Of course, like, give him some credit. Some of them have been well dodged. I think Edge of Night helped out with the last one as well to make sure that Soft wasn't caught. And it's just such a difficult position here for Barrage, because this was kind of the game you really needed to win to keep your playoff hopes alive. They're not mathematically eliminated after this one, but being 2-5 when Tricked are 5-2, when Fnatic are right at the top of the group as well. And Erin, that was a cool flash. I'm not sure you needed to do it. You had stopwatch, like you had double stopwatches. But yeah, you can style on people from time to time.
Oh, is Rudy gonna take his chance?
He is. Okay, he gets the shield
Come on.
from the adaptive defenses. Visor's
That's
going
it.
to try and get away here. The rest of the team is pushing in mid and top lane. Good dodge of the explosive cast. Greedy, looking for the kill, looking for the side lane play. Zhonya's comes out, gets the tactical sweep in, and Visor, oh, the slow. And here comes Soft. The man advantage now for Trick. Greedy able to dodge away, but yeah, in the mid lane, the inhibitor tower has gone down. The inhibitor's next on the menu. The rest of Trick able to survive. There's the second inhibitor of the game, only 25 minutes in, a 9,000 gold lead for Trick. There's 3 minutes on a dragon if they want to wait for the Infernal Soul, but I'm pretty sure they could all just group bot and push in for the win.
Ooh. So now if you're Tricked, you gotta think, do you want the perfect game with the soul and the next Baron to finish? Or do you just, you know, rise up to the expectations and slap Barrage across the face with all the dollar you have in your bank right now? Because the item discrepancy is huge. That Camille is stuck on one item. But the Setsuan doesn't even have an item apart from the jungle one. And as you can see, there's a bunch of bounties, there's a bunch of items from the side of Trick. They don't even need to reset. They just straight up walk down bot.
It's going to push in for this final turret. They have 40 seconds left on this Baron buff. They'll wait for the super minions to cascade into the base, but really that turret is like 1 or 2 auto attacks away. A Chu could sneeze on it and it would be taken down. The curtain call comes out, the turret goes down, the glacial prison hits, and Visor is the target. PlayStation trying to get on the backline. He's tanked up all of the curtain call. Dreedy goes down, PlayStation survives, the explosive cast comes out as well, and here's the chase with the Sonic Wave. Goodbye, Barrage. There is nothing you can do. Forced back to the fountain. Only 27 minutes into the game. Trick have made an absolute shellacking of this game, and Barrage really have no hope in hell of coming back. Incredible stuff from Trick. Barrage made a few mistakes, but Trick looking good as they take the win here over Barrage.
I'm so happy to see Trick being back in form, playing their aggressive playstyle, playing the globals, choking out the side lanes, refusing vision, refusing resources. And even though sure, we saw the Sejuani get sort of ahead, I feel like it was more Soft's fault for just trying to get situations going where there weren't necessarily any in the early game. But this is how itchy they were to just get started right as the sun comes up. And was that a great showing by Tricked?
I mean, they did exactly what they needed to. They played around the pressure they had with the extra globals. They were able to find picks, and it felt every time Barrage tried to make a play, Trick were ready and waiting to answer. We're going to go to a short break before we get back with the second game of the day. Make sure you stay tuned.
multiplication of the kinds of wealth. We found this animation, luck was a conversation, pictures on a shelf. People say we are just what we do. It's just a stage. So we go on, and the lights are so strong.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NLC. We had a pretty one-sided win there for Tricked. Barrage actually showing, I know they're 2-4, but we have seen, 2-5 now. We had seen some life in this team, but I feel like this game was probably one of the most one-sided losses they've had.
And it's honestly quite sad to see. It's exactly as we described it in the pregame, right? You didn't really see any flaws in the early laning phase. They just do what they need to do. But every player can do that and build up the early game fundamentals just from playing solo queue. It's as soon as we get to the mid to late game that we're starting to see Barrage just struggle. And it's quite sad because they have the right ideas sometimes, but they're just miscoordinated with their teammates. They just don't have the right decision making. And in the end, it's just not enough when it keeps going on like this.
Yeah, look, honestly, I'm struggling to find something that Barrage did well that game. Their draft was weird. We kind of talked about it. I mean, I know there was some good elements there, but some of the champions they picked, they're not super meta for a reason right now. People play meta because it's good, not because it's just like the things they find interesting to play. So whilst I don't think the draft was the massive issue, like they didn't really get anything right. Like they tried to put some resources into champion on the top lane, didn't work out. They fluffed that dive horrendously, and too many times we saw just like failed tower dives go wrong. Bot lane didn't get any headway either. Just almost nothing went right, and there was a huge like mismatch in terms, or not mismatch, huge just like wrong priorities when it came to neutral objectives as well, Orcs.
Yeah, I feel like the major thing for me was the fact that they had this scaling element to the composition. You have the Corki. They didn't opt to play around. They didn't opt to use the package around the neutral objectives. Normally, what I like to see is a Corki syncing up their package with the dragons. The first package they used, they wasted completely, ended up forfeiting the Herald anyway. And it's like, I actually thought the game could have been in a good spot when they got that second dragon, delaying the soul from Tricked for a little bit longer, because it would have given them time to scale, and yet they just kept fighting every single dragon from then on, even though they hadn't hit that power spike. You're looking at 3-4 items on the Corki, you're looking at 3 items on the Jhin, and instead they are just forcing these fights. And it's no surprise that Tricked, who has that early strength, who has a great backline threat from the Least and the Gragas, are going to come out successful.
When we were watching that game off air, Gulborg said they shouldn't fight this dragon. No, I think it was Gulborg said they shouldn't fight this dragon, and Orcs went, yeah, but they will. And that is kind of unfortunately just something they've been criminal of doing, is they will just fight every objective. Now, Orcs, you did pick a play of the match, something that stood out to you, so we'll hand that over to you, and you can talk to us about the play of the match from this game.
Yes, this is one of the dragon fights, and I think it's really the one that put the nail into the coffin here. You can see Barrage very grouped up as they should be with this composition, and it's a tricky one for Trick to approach. I think this shows sort of the strength of them. A nice ult splits the team up into 2 sections. Nightmare's now distance. You see how the Jhin ult starts to fire off, and then a lot of damage gets pummeled in. Soft executes the Jhin on the side, and it's just a very quick cleanup for the team. I think the main thing is when you're against these teams with strong backlines, it can be a little bit difficult to approach them, but they found a good angle on the flank, and Wazer and Soft were just instrumental in punishing the backline with their ultimates.
And it's just as as you mentioned as well here, Brain, like they shouldn't fight this, but they will anyway. It goes down to the fundamentals of what items do we have right now that do so we actually can fight, and the answer will be none, but they will fight anyway because they feel like it. And it's just, it's so sad to see, because I really want Barrage to succeed, but they're not playing to their own win condition, and thus they will just lose.
Well, with that, they were, taken down. They kind of forced a little bit too hard, but we actually do have a Chew standing by ready for an interview. So, Chew, can you hear me? You there, buddy?
Yeah, hello, thank you.
How you doing? How you feeling after that win? pretty one-sided, really.
Yeah, it felt good finally winning a game or like not throwing any games. So that was a pretty nice one.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit more about the draft there. Do you feel like you guys got everything you wanted out of that? What were your thoughts about the Jhin bot lane? Is that something you were expecting, or was that did that maybe catch you off and a little bit of a curveball thrown at you in that draft phase?
I mean, like we kind of predicted like all the picks and like the first 3 picks at least from their side. I would say like the Jhin was a bit unexpected. We would have guessed they would go like with Aphelios or something like that, which they usually play. So that was a bit of a curveball, but we kind of got everything we wanted. And then we didn't really knew about the Sejuani at the end, which kind of threw us off a bit. But other than that, like we got what we wanted, and we were pretty happy from draft. So
yeah. So there's 2 weeks left of the league. You guys have a few more games left. What's the focus right now for these last 2 weeks of play? Where's the team's head like? You know, what's going on for you guys right now?
I mean, like it's going a bit better. Like we had like the 3 rough weeks here, like coming up from scrims and not the best results in the NLC. But this week we showed some progress, and we're just trying to get the fundamentals down and then like kind of increase our level. So we're not really either sometimes we play really good, and when we not hit that level, like we play really bad. So we're just trying to like rise our fundamentals, so like we have more consistent games. And then we're just trying to kind of focus into the mid game, where we have shown a lot of issues throughout the split. So that is like the main focus we're going into the upcoming weeks.
Yeah. So break it up a little bit there for me, so I can I missed that. Let's talk about the last game of the split. Actually, in the last game for you guys will be playing versus Munster. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the bot lane. I want some spice here. How do you feel you guys are going to handle Unforgiven and Heaver? Give me some spice. Let's have it.
I mean, like it's gonna be easy to handle. I mean, like they can only play like forward. So like if you just kind of stay calm, you don't make the mistakes which happened last time, and therefore it's easy to beat them. So no problem.
Awesome. Nice to hear some confidence coming out of you, and thank you for joining us for this interview. Chu, congratulations on your win. Now, guys, we still have so much more NLC to come. We've got Munster Rugby versus Fnatic Rising as our second game of the day. So we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with Munster versus Fnatic. See you in a second.